The Raddus was an MC-85 star cruiser which was formerly known as the Dawn of Tranquility. It was fitted with 11 sublight ion modules and included an ion injection manifold as well as turbo injectors. It measured in at 3,438 meters, which is a little over double the size of an Imperial Star Destroyer, and had the capability to house a skeleton crew of 1,139 people. Since it only housed this smaller crew, most of the modules that could be augmented to house more crew members were abandoned and closed off, which saved on energy output. This ship was created by and for the Mon Calamari people, and it housed many waterways which were originally for the species. The name of the cruiser was done as an act of honor when Admiral Akbar petitioned for the name to be changed in order to honor Admiral Raddus, who died during the Battle of Scarif, where he defied the rebel leaders in order to help with the mission to obtain the plans for the Death Star. For weapons, the Raddus was equipped with 18 heavy turbo lasers, 18 heavy ion cannons, 12 point defense laser cannons, and 6 proton torpedo launchers. As for the deflector shields, it was fitted with experimental models which allowed it to withstand immense damage from all directions at all times, making it a hardy flagship to go into battle. Originally, the Raddus was part of the New Republic's home fleet, but since the rebels didn't have enough personnel to manage the ship properly, it was retired. It wasn't until the rise of the First Order that the cruiser was recommissioned and used to evacuate the rebel base on Dakar. Later, Kylo Ren would attack the bridge after sensing his mother, General Leia Organa, and with the bridge destroyed and the First Order tracking them, Admiral Holdo would use the flagship to jump to light speed and crash right into the Supremacy, which bought the Resistance rebels time to reach the planet of Crate. The Malevolence was a Subjugator-class heavy cruiser which was used by leaders of the Confederate Army, Count Dooku, and General Grievous. It was designed on the planet Pamant by Ruggles Schmong in secret, and it was originally made from the skeleton frame of a discarded Soro Sub Corporation starship. The Malevolence was 4,845 meters long, which made it 3 times bigger than an Imperial Star Destroyer. It was equipped with 16 engine units, which allowed it to go 1,050 kilometers per hour. Because of its immense size, it was too large to jump through hyperspace while going through certain obstructions like a nebula, so it was fitted with a sensor array, navigation computer, and a Class II hyperdrive generator, which allowed it to navigate around these issues with ease. The ship was known as a fleet killer as it was equipped with enough armaments and support modules to disable and destroy whatever it came in contact with. The ship-mounted mega-ion weapon was able to shoot in a wide pulse instead of the narrow beam other ISD cannons shot like. This allowed the Malevolence to disable a fleet's engines, shields, and communications to leave them dead in the water so that they could be boarded and salvaged without destroying any necessary components. It was also fitted with heavy turbo lasers batteries, light turbo lasers, and point defense cannons, which made it more than capable in dealing with anything from capital ships to individual starfighters. Some of the downsides to the cruiser which led to its demise was the fact that the mega-ion cannon took a very long time to charge so that it was ready to fire, which made it more susceptible to light starfighter infiltration. It was also very slow in its maneuvering due to its large size, and in the end, it was defeated through Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Padme infiltrating the ship and sabotaging it from the inside, leaving it to crash into the dead moon of Antar instead of flying to a secret Separatist base. The Asserter-class Super Star Destroyer, or Asserter-class Star Dreadnought, was an absolute beast in the Galactic Empire's ranks, and it measured at a gigantic 15,000 meters, which was almost equivalent to 10 Imperial Star Destroyers. In modern terms, that's 150 football fields lined up in a row. The engines equipped on the ship made it ideal for consistent forward propulsion, but not for turning and maneuvering. But the immense shields on the ship meant that it could typically push forward and not worry about asteroids or smaller ships if it had to push through obstacles. It required 125,000 crew members in order to operate it, but it also housed 20,000 extra troops and staff, making it an excellent warship. In order to keep up with that many people, it was packed with enough food to last the entire crew for 3 years in deep space. For weapons, it was fitted with 20 port and 20 starboard quad heavy turbo laser batteries, 15 port and 15 starboard quad battleship ion cannon batteries, and 10 dorsal twin heavy turbo lasers. There were also 30 more quad light turbo laser batteries which were fitted on the front, starboard, and port sides. It also had 10 port and 10 starboard dorsal medium ion cannons, 20 heavy tractor beam projectors, and 20 ventral twin battleship ion cannon batteries. There were very few of this style of ship created on the Quat Drive yards, and during the Galactic Civil War, the Asserter and the Wrath were only two of the few ships to be used during the Battle of Yavin. But the Wrath was in an entirely different fleet. These ships operated in the mid and outer rims primarily, and the Asserter was the main operating ship. Coming in at half the size of the Asserter-class Super Star Destroyer was the Mandator IV class siege dreadnought, which was used by the First Order. It was 7,669.71 meters and had 53,000 officers, 140,000 enlisted personnel, and 22,000 stormtroopers on board. This made it the size of roughly 5 Imperial Star Destroyers, but it was armed to the teeth. It had siege-scale super-heavy turbo lasers, which made it perfect for overwhelming planetary shields and devastating city-sized targets. Heavy turbo laser batteries used for capital ship bombardment, ion cannons which allowed it to disable defending fleets, point defense laser cannons to defend against attacking starships, and concussion missiles and proton torpedoes. The design of this ship was inspired by Darth Vader's Executor, and it was considered to be the most dangerous ship in deployment during the Battle of Dakar. During the battle, the Fulminatrix was under the command of Captain Moden Kennedy, and it laid waste to many Resistance ships. It was only because of Poe Dameron and a Resistance bombing run that the ship was essentially destroyed. After the rebels escaped, the Colossus arrived in need of coaxium, and the members of that ship raided what was left of the Fulminatrix before it was rendered completely totaled. During the Ancient Republic era, the Krakano was a titan as a flagship, as it measured around 5,000 meters long, which made it the length of 3 Imperial Star Destroyers and some change. This was the flagship of Zem the Despot, a human male from Argai who ended up becoming a tyrannical warlord. This was a time when ship design was far less refined than the time of the Clone Wars, Galactic Empire, or First Order. It was built as a sign of raw force and domination, and it represented proto-super capital ship design long before Super Star Destroyers were created. This ship began the thought process that control could come from sheer size and terror, and it eventually came to help solidify the Hutt's rise to power. While Zem was in control of the Krakana, he declared war on the Hutts, who were able to destroy the ship during battle. Because of this show of force, the Hutts were able to absorb all of the systems that Zem had come to conquer before his untimely demise, and it proved that the Hutts were a force to be reckoned with on a galactic scale instead of just a regional level. Going back to the time of the Empire, or just after their fall, the Eclipse-class dreadnought was built on Quat Drive Yard 6 years after the Battle of Endor, and these mega-class ships were 15 kilometers long. This made them over the size of 10 Imperial Star Destroyers, and it had more mass than any other Imperial Star Destroyer. While it was fitted with the traditional heavy and light turbo lasers and other armaments, its most dangerous weapon was an axial super laser. The axial super laser was similar to the Death Star super laser, but it was scaled down tremendously to require less power and be able to fire from the Eclipse-class sized ship. This laser was able to crack through any planetary shield with enough force and energy to penetrate and destroy what lays underneath. It even had the capability of destroying any other Imperial Star Destroyer, as it was used on the Annihilator when Tiber Zan seized the ship above Quat. This class of dreadnought also saw improvements in its hull and shield, which allowed it to ram and destroy any ships in their way without any hesitation. Unlike the Death Star, this ship was able to maneuver much better than the battle station, as the propulsion engines on this ship were fitted in a way that the energy was put to better use with enhanced hyperdrive and fast sublight engines. Even after Tiber Zan used the ship to destroy the Annihilator, as well as a rebel ship, the ship was deemed to be too big and cumbersome to hide from the rebel fleet, and it was left to float adrift in the space above Quat. Soon afterwards, the New Republic fleet, consisting of Mon Calamari and Corellian ships, destroyed what was left of the forgotten Eclipse project. The Executor-class Star Dreadnought was also known as the Executor-class Super Star Destroyer, and it is one of the most recognizable flagships of the Galactic Empire time period. It measured 19,000 meters in length, making it equal to about 12 Imperial Star Destroyers, and it held a crew of 280,784 crew members, as well as 38,000 troopers and support staff. It could reach speeds of up to 100 kilometers per hour with the help of Executor 50X engines, and it had a Class 1 as a primary hyperdrive with a Class 10 as a secondary unit. The bridge for this ship was 285 meters wide on its own and housed shield generators, briefing rooms, and escape pods for the crew. As for weapons, it consisted of over 5,000 turbo lasers, with this including 750 twin heavy turbo lasers and 1,000 turret-mounted twin light turbo lasers. It was also armed with 125 assault concussion missile launchers, 100 twin battleship ion cannons, and 250 turret-mounted quad laser cannons. The Executor-class also housed a number of starfighters to disperse at its convenience, which consisted of TIE fighters, TIE bombers, and TIE interceptors. 1,000 starships divided up into 12 squadrons, to be exact. Not only space units, though, it also carried 200 assault shuttles, Y-85 Titan dropships, 24 AT-ATs, 50 AT-STs, and 2 IM-455 modular garrisons. Most notably, the Executor-class Super Star Destroyer, known simply as the Executor, was present, and the main flagship for the Battle of Endor, where it was under the command of Admiral Piet. It seemed to be unstoppable for most of the battle, until a single Rebel A-Wing, piloted by Arvel Krynid, crashed into the bridge, causing the flagship to crash into the Death Star II battle station and bringing both of them down. Continuing with the Empire's superships, the Vengeance-class dreadnought was 10,000 meters long, making it the length of 6 Imperial Star Destroyers. While this is smaller than some of the other dreadnought models, this ship was able to be classified as a super heavy capital ship without being considered a super Star Destroyer model. This model was given a slender build, which made it much narrower than a traditional Star Destroyer, and most of the dorsal frame was covered in armor to give it a downward dominating presence, which was also extremely functional. The bridge of this ship was also very extensive and covered most of the command tower, which was very different from other command ships built on Quat. This ship class was only ever seen destroying an unmanned CR-90 corvette, but its armaments were very similar to other dreadnought of the Executor class, as well as similar propulsion modules. The Vengeance flagship was known to be commanded by the Dark Jedi and Imperial Inquisitor Jarek, and he used it all the way up to his death around 5 ABY. Aside from that, other Vengeance-class dreadnoughts were used in the BIS defense fleet, and 3 of them were sent to the Deep Core to retake the core worlds in 10 ABY. One of the most impressive battle stations was known as the Eye of Palpatine, and it was 31 kilometers in diameter, which made it the size of 2 Death Stars. It was designed to resemble an asteroid to give it extra camouflage, and it was technically the Empire's first superweapon. It was designed in secret in 18 BBY using government funds, which had been secretly diverted by the Emperor, and it was designed by Oron Keldor, who also had a hand in designing the Death Star. Technically, the Eye of Palpatine was classified as both a dreadnought as well as a battle moon, and it was capable of carrying out a base Delta Zero type orbital bombardment, which meant it could reduce the upper crust of a planet to molten slag. What made this station stand out, aside from its size, is the fact that it was unmanned and run through artificial intelligence known as the Will, so that its existence and location could be kept a secret. It was also equipped with a multitude of TIE squadrons, as well as Beta-class ETR-3 escort transports and Skip Ray blast boats. Even though the Empire went to great lengths to keep it a secret, it was discovered by Jedi Knights Gaith Eris and Callista Ming, and Callista trapped her own spirit in the Battlemoon's computer to stop its reign of terror. Because of this huge failure on the part of the Empire, Palpatine imprisoned many of his own officers for their insolence in the matter. The Eye was rediscovered in 12 ABY after flying around dormant, and it was found by the Emperor's hand Rogonda Ismarin, who used her son, who was implanted with a sub-electronic converter, to summon it. The Eye continued its dormant mission of retrieving stormtrooper units, and it picked up people from every species and brainwashed them into believing that they were actually stormtroopers. Eventually, the Eye was destroyed by Jedi student Nico Smar. The Mega-class Star Dreadnought was known by many names, but it was considered to be the largest ship to ever be created in the galaxy. It was 60 kilometers in length, and it was longer than 37 Imperial Star Destroyers. It required 6 fusion reactor centers to power the entire ship, and it was housed with a hyperdrive and 32 sublight engines. It was able to carry 2,225,000 personnel, with room for all sorts of starfighters, dropships, and all-terrain troop transport vehicles. The Supremacy was one of the First Order's pride and joy, and it devastated many systems during its run in the Navy. It was during its chase of the Raddus that it was heavily damaged when Vice Admiral Holdo rammed it at light speed, But even though it was sliced in two, it still remained operational. It was later abandoned and scuttled by the First Order Navy due to the fact that it had suffered such heavy damage that rendered it unfixable. All of these pale in comparison to the abilities of the Yuuzhan Vong Korostrona. These spacefaring vessels were better known as world ships and housed entire communities of the extragalactic Yuuzhan Vong. These vessels were made from yorick coral, and the coral formed symbiotic relationships with other biological creatures and plants, creating its own defense, propulsion, and armaments from them. The ship itself was only 10 kilometers long and 10 kilometers wide, but they were full of everything they would possibly need. In fact, they were able to produce their own armaments from the molten slag that was shot from hundreds of Yaret core emplacements. There was enough space to carry 5,000 warriors along with coral skippers and other ground vehicles. Since these were living vessels, they had a lifespan, but they were able to survive for a minimum of 500 years, while some were known to last for 1,000 years. One such station, known as Banu Mir, was able to carry 12,000 warriors and citizens, and it was 1,000 years old by 26 ABY. It was never defeated or destroyed, and instead it died out, and it was no longer able to travel faster than light. The Yuuzhan Vong had a deep condemnation of modern technology, and this led them to be experts in fusing biological material to create whatever they needed. And that's how they discovered the Korostrona, which acted as a battle station, transport, psychological weapon, and home, all in one, as they entered the galaxy to invade and fight the New Republic with stations such as the Alec Show and Banu Ras.